don't feel bad about stealing money from banks.
They stole so much from me in my 20s with overdraft fees.
Yes, they
Wells
did.
Fargo, I'm still mad at you.
I stole money from a lot of the loan shark companies, like
the
cash
payday
checking,
lenders?
payday lenders. That I feel 0% bad about.
Hey, Sam Sanders here. Thanks for checking out my show. It's an entertainment show. And one thing I find very entertaining are scams. I love watching scams. I love the stories of scams. I'm into Jen Shah on the Salt Lake City Housewives. I followed everything about Fyre Fest, and I'm ready for Fyre Fest 2.0. I even enjoyed that not great Anna Delvey scam show on Netflix. So, all this to say, I am so honored and excited to have someone in the studio this episode who has been called by many the OG scammer.
Yeah, that's something that some call me that I love that's how I'm being introduced. No, that's
Tell folks who you are.
Yeah, my name is Kari Ferrell. I am a writer, producer, reformed scammer, and activist.
Yeah, and you have a book.
And I have a book that
which
just
is
came out called You'll Never Believe Me, A Life of Lies, Second Tries, and Other Things I Should Only Tell My Therapist.
That's a very good book now.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I want to get more into your story, why you're called the OG scammer, why the story of you, a.k.a. the Hipster Grifter, literally took over the internet for a while, a little over a decade ago. But first, I guess, larger question for you. We've alluded to the fact that, like, not all scammers reform themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You made a purposeful effort to do so. And in your book, you talk a lot about your mental health journey and your personal journey to make amends and, like, do right. What makes you want to do that and other scammers not?
Mm-hmm.
Was there a moment, a thing, a time? What caused that? Like, because you're so self-reflective in the book.
Yeah.
A lot of folks who are ID'd as scammers never are.
Well, a lot of it is my background, right? So I am a transracial, transnational adoptee.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Seoul, South Korea, and then adopted by very white people. I love my parents, but they are like cadaver white. Their skin,
Not cadaver.
Yeah, like their skin reflects the sun. It's crazy. It absorbs it and then it reflects it. That's how luminous alabaster it is.
Okay.
All of that is being said because I also grew up in Utah and I grew up Mormon, and I was the only person who looked the way that I do, and people think that I'm being hyperbolic, and then sometimes I'll pull out, like my elementary, class photos, and it's like, nope,
Just
it's
you.
a blizzard,
Yeah.
it's a sea of white, and then
Yeah.
it's me. And, I think just due to that upbringing, I was always hyper aware of both my identity and lack of identity. And so I've always been a very introspective, might not be the right word because that usually alludes to that being a positive thing. But I've always been, just very hyper aware about my place in the world. And again, due to that specific upbringing in that specific area, my place was very much bottom of the, I was definitely beneath and very much othered. And so I think the reflection part honestly just came very naturally.
Because you were always thinking about how you fit in
Because
the
I was
world.
always thinking. The difference is that I turned that reflection back on. It was actual reflection, and I looked at myself and my actions versus just kind of studying others.
Do you remember the moment when you said, I'm going to stop now?
Yeah, I mean, so I ultimately, to answer your question about why, I'm sort of referred to as the OG, this was in 2008, 2009. So obviously the internet and social media did not exist
And
in the
we
way.
gotta set the scene. It's a
Yes,
different time.
it is a
This
different
was
time.
we were listening to like MGMT and Grizzly Bear, Vice, a news outlet, was Ascendant. That was the vibe. It was
That
a
was
different
vibe.
time.
And there wasn't the prevalence of social media. Twitter had existed for, I think, a couple of years, but had really just started to pick up steam.
Yeah. This was an era of still like Gawker.
Yeah.
The kids don't know.
The kids don't
It was a
know.
different time.
It was a
Ugh,
very different time,
ugh.
and it was one where we were sort of, it was the final vestiges of, like, latchkey kids, right? Because we were still able to
Ah.
exist without there being constant surveillance.
Mhm.
So, it was a really, really fun time, and I think that part of the reason that the story became so big was, A, it was really the first viral scam story.
Huh.
So,
Because
the
at one point, several news outlets, including Gawker, was, like, asking folks in Williamsburg to send photos and tips of when they saw you.
Yeah, it was called Gawker Stalker.
Wild.
That's
Yeah.
legitimately what it was
Yeah.
called.
Yeah.
And, for those listeners who don't know the story, essentially I started in Salt Lake City in Utah scamming friends and
Yeah.
people who
Hot
really
checks.
cared about
With
me
hot
by
checks.
writing
Yeah.
hot
Which
checks.
and so this was because some folks might not know this. You would have friends or people you knew write out checks.
I would write checks
You
to
would write
them.
checks to
I'd write
them.
my own checks, my own bunk checks,
Uh-huh.
and I would say the ruse was, something's going on with my bank account. I can't get money out of the ATM, but I can still write checks. Can I, write one to you? And then,
And
for
you
helping me out, I'll
cash
give
it.
you $100 or
Yeah.
whatever. It's funny because when I was writing the book, I was like, oh, I have to explain checks.
Oh, yeah. It's a different time.
They're a
It's a
piece of
different
paper
time.
that you can
Yeah.
ascribe any amount to.
Uh-huh. And you
It's
can
a
just write it
worthless
down.
piece of paper that you can say means whatever you want it to mean. And it took, several days for that check to be to bounce, to come back.
Which is totally a thing that happened in that era. Because now
Yes.
these banks are quick and on your phone and they see stuff. That type of scamming could only happen then. It escalates when you basically all your friends find out that you're giving them hot checks and you owe them money that you can't pay them.
Yep.
You get arrested down there. But once you're out, you're like, I got to break free. You end up in Williamsburg, in
Yes.
Brooklyn, and you sweet talk Vice News and tell them that you've worked in production and done this and done that. They give you a job,
Hmm.
but when they find out your personal history and your record, they publish an article about you being a scammer, and then it blows up.
And then it blows up. And that's how I found out that I was being let go from the job, obviously. But like, it's funny because you think Vice magazine, and I mean, the reason that I wanted to work there was because to me, it was very representative of who I was as a person, which was always this ridiculous character,
Yeah.
like I think throughout, I have a lot of, I get asked all the time, well, why weren't you going to like the Carlisle or sitting at these fancy bars and, becoming a sugar baby?
Yeah.
Why was it that you were going
You were going to,
to
like,
Union
girl talk
Pool?
concerts with,
Exactly.
like, bearded hipsters who didn't have that much money themselves.
Right. Well, yes.
Some of them did.
Some of them did. But exactly. And I think throughout all of it, I was still very much me. And I didn't have a drug problem. I didn't have a gambling problem. What I was addicted to was, yes, the attention,
Mhm.
but it was the belonging and it was the not being forgotten.
You said something in the book or wrote something that really stuck with me on that point. You wrote in your book, quote, "I didn't steal money for drugs. I stole money in hopes that people wouldn't forget me."
Yeah.
Girl.
Exactly.
Wow. Unpack that. That's
I
heavy.
think you unpack that. How much time do we have? I'm like 150 plus hours in therapy, probably on that
On that alone.
alone.
What does
But
that mean when you hear that back to you?
I mean, it's kind of like abandonment, adoption issues 101, right? Where to me, it was, of course, I would rather be remembered for, at the time, none of this, there was no clarity around this. This
Yeah.
was all
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
retrospect.
for sure.
But, it very much was like, well, I just, I would love for it to be for good things, but if it's for better, it didn't
Yeah.
matter to me at the time
Yeah.
how I was being remembered.
Yeah.
It was just like, I need to make my mark, and I need to make my mark by finding marks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But throughout it all, I was still me. So, like, these people, these Williamsburg hipster trust fund guys that I
Yeah.
was targeting, they still had to be people that I would have wanted to actually spend time with.
Huh. So you
Um,
didn't want to be with the snobby high society. You're
yeah.
scamming. You were trying to like get closer to the folks that you would have actually wanted to be friends with if you weren't scamming?
It boiled down to acceptance, and it
Oh,
it really was that I didn't realize how interesting my story was just at the on its own,
oh yeah.
and so
Oh yeah.
I
And it
was
is. I
like,
mean, like reading about your childhood in the book, one, the Mormon faith is wild. Two, the things that adults who should have cared for you better were telling you and having you believe was like messed up.
yeah, I
There was the
mean,
one episode where like an adult professional gets you on a diet as a kid and is like kind of telling you some just really mean things that a kid shouldn't hear.
yeah, 1,000%. I feel like a lot of children, especially young girls, went through things like that,
Mm,
right? There was also a restaurant where they literally weighed you in the lobby and then they would decide, it was like 10
yeah.
cents for every pound or
Oh
something, and
my
that's how much they would
god.
pay. So it was obviously a different time.
Uh-huh.
And that is very much, again, why the story blew up. The news cycle was so much slower than it is now.
Mhm.
And it was this fun story. And again, I look the way that I do. So I'm not the typical what people think of when they imagine a scammer or a con artist
Huh.
or a
What do
criminal.
you think they imagine?
I mean, definitely that's a good question. I think that people of color for sure, but
Mm.
not the model minority. And so you would
Whoa.
ask me like, "Oh, when did you decide to stop?" There's that question of like what radicalized you, right?
Yeah.
Going to jail for me was a reformative experience that had nothing to do with the jail itself. It had
Mm.
everything to do with meeting all of the amazing people who were, for the most part, women of color.
Latino and black.
Mhm.
It's a lot of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And even yeah, there are far fewer in Utah, but even still, like,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
disproportionate. And
Yeah.
so, I grew up like most people do, thinking the cops are here to help us. They are our friends.
Mhm.
The institution without it, it would be chaos.
Mhm.
And so then I went into it and saw firsthand just how absolutely, yeah, just how unfair it is.
Mm.
And so it wasn't like a thing where I was there and everybody says that they're going, we're never coming back. I'm
Mhm.
never coming back. But it's like, well, unfortunately, we live in a world where it you can feel that way. And I believe that most people do, but the system doesn't allow it. And so
Mm.
seeing this like revolving door of folks
Mm.
just like leaving, coming back, it was like, okay, well, why is that? Because when they're
Mhm.
here and I'm speaking to them, I
Mhm.
can tell that they just want to be there for their kids. They just want to
Mhm.
get a regular ass job. They just, all
Mhm.
of these things. But then 3 weeks later, they're back here. Why is that? And it's like, oh, because we let people out of these situations with
With
nothing
nothing.
and expect
And we expect them to be more moral and upstanding than we expect for ourselves, while
that
also giving them no
part.
resources and second chances. So we're gonna
Exactly.
kick you out. It's hard for you to get a job, and we say to you, don't ever make any mistakes ever again.
Ever again, and it's expensive. A lot
Yeah.
of something that a lot of people don't know is that Utah and many others are pay to stay states. So you ultimately do end up paying
Wait,
for
like once
every
you get
day that
out,
you're
you get a bill?
there. You essentially, yes, and
Wow.
they're making money from the government for each
Because the government's paying
person.
for each bed every night, and they
Exactly.
probably have a lot of folks who are there a long time working for free.
Yeah, yeah.
Whew.
Which is why, there's so many issues with
Mhm.
with it, but privately owned institutions,
Yeah.
it is a
Yeah.
scur.
Yeah.
It's not a good thing. But the story, just like, I say in real life, but
Mhm.
in life and in jail, I'm still the same person I am. I'm still making these
Yeah.
ridiculous jokes. One of the reasons that it took off is because in Williamsburg, it's me. I've been a natural storyteller my entire life.
Mhm.
I just didn't know how to channel it. And
Mhm.
so I'd saunter up to these guys at the bar and I would like slide them a napkin and they would be like, what is going
But it
on? It
would
was like
say something
roller
on it.
coaster of
Yeah.
emotions, right? And then I'd watch them open it up and it would have these ridiculous things. Now that
Give us some
you're
examples.
I don't know if I can now that you're an amazing syndicated program.
We'll bleep it
Wait, I
off.
got one.
Okay.
I would write things like, "I want you to give me a massage from the inside."
And what was the other one?
The other one
The hot
was
dog
hot
something?
dog. Yeah, I want you to throw your hot dog down my hallway. That one, though, I can't take credit for. I don't know who came up with that one. The others I did. The most, I guess, famous one
Mm.
was, yeah, I want to give you a hand job with my mouth. That one
Wow.
slayed. That one slayed.
I gotta say, if someone wrote that on a napkin and sent it to me, there's gonna be some kind of conversation.
Yeah, exactly,
We're not having a
exactly.
conversation after
Right,
that.
and I think a lot of that came from, again, me being who I am, but the reason that I am the way I am is because I've always had to, again, just not fitting in and being othered. It was like, I'm gonna make fun of myself before anyone else has the opportunity
Mm.
to. A, because I'm funnier, but
Mhm.
B, because it's the defense mechanism of, like, I'm taking the power away from you,
Yeah.
and so in these situations, even if there hadn't been something where they were making fun of me per se, it was kind of like, "All right, this is my," again, not negating anything, but, like, my weird cyclical, I guess, show of feminism,
Gotcha. Yeah.
in a lot of
Well,
ways.
and reading that part of the book, in all of this, there were racial dynamics at play.
Yes.
You were in these spaces full of white hipsters who would have called themselves progressive or liberal, but they played in some really racist stereotypes and tropes about Asian people and Asian women, which you heard.
Mhm.
And you also said that, like, part of the way that you were scamming was using those very stereotypes to your benefit.
Yeah, there would be times it wasn't like I was really plotting or planning how to do any of this.
Okay.
They were all really crimes of opportunity.
Okay.
It wasn't like
Yeah.
I wasn't saying to myself, "I'm gonna go out and tonight find a person and
Uh-huh.
do this thing or whatever,"
Uh-huh. Yeah.
steal their iPod Nano. That's the time period that
That
we're
was the
in.
time period. The kids don't know.
The
It
kids
was a
don't know.
different time.
Our music was separate.
Mhm.
And so, I would kind of, like, identify a person by way of, if I was talking with them, if they paid me no mind, which that is unfair for a lot of reasons, but I would always think, "Okay, well, then looking around at who they are interested in, it's just people who are not like me."
Huh.
Or they would say something. I got a lot of, there's the trope of just being like a subservient Asian woman, even though I'm covered in tattoos, even though, it was either that or like crazy dragon lady.
Uh.
And so there wasn't a lot of balance. It was one
Mhm.
or the other, and both of those things are not things that I wanted to like identify
Would you
as.
specifically target men who you thought were stereotyping Asian women?
Yes.
Huh.
Now, looking back on it, definitely. I don't know
Really?
that that was going through my mind at the time in that
Was it some
specific
kind of, like,
way.
weird subconscious retribution?
Yes, and I think it was that, again, it was people who I legitimately, like, thought that I was attracted to, and this was right after coming from Utah, so it was
Yeah.
like they all looked
New York
exactly
boys.
like, and but they all looked exactly like how everyone in Utah looked, which were
Oh.
white dudes who never gave me the time of day. So to answer your question about, like, was I targeting specifically, I think that I was, but that was part of the story, right, is that I had a lot of fans because there were people who were like, "Yeah, these are the people who deserve to be
Really?
scammed," and it became.
The dudes who say they're woke but really aren't.
Right, right,
Yeah.
and the thing about hipsters, I mean,
Don't get me
is
started.
right, a lot of it is, first of all, moving into, and I am very much a part of this issue, but, moving into communities, pushing the original people out,
Mhm.
gentrifying, but then there's something about hipsters specifically where it's like.
Objectifying the culture of the folks they've displaced.
Yes, and it's like working class, right? They love the
Yes.
aesthetics of the working
They
class.
they all these hipsters, this again, a different time.
Different time.
You had these hipsters dressing like the parents and older folks in the neighborhoods they fled,
Exactly.
dressing like they're in rural Ohio while they're spending money that they don't have in Williamsburg, pushing out black and brown people.
Yep, exactly
And
that.
and while saying that they're liberal, they're good, and they get it, but giving people like you subtle ironic racism.
Exactly.
It's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing, and I mean, part of, even now to this day, we've obviously moved forward in many ways, and backwards, but we've moved forward in many ways. That being said, I do think that white liberals specifically love to say, we give second chances, we root for the underdog. And it is true. I don't want to say that it's not like blanket statement. It's not. But it's like, okay, well, can you actually prove that? Because there
Mm-hmm.
have been plenty of times where I've been in a situation where I have done nothing but shown that I am who I am now, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's still not good enough.
Mm.
And I don't have to harp on this for too long, but
Yeah.
again, looking at people like Billy McFarlane, Frank
Firefest guy.
Abagnale,
Yeah.
who's Catch Me If You Can, Wolf
Yeah.
of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, it's like these people do these crazy, horrible
For a lot
things.
more money than what you were taking.
Yeah, and that was the
Those are
other.
scammers that were taking millions.
I mean, those are like, yeah, legit Ponzi schemes, right?
Yeah.
My crime, and again, I'm not negating the actions, but was very low stakes. And the state of Utah put me on a most wanted list. And so going back to the Vice, me
Wow.
finding out that I was being let go, because Vice posted this article was because they had Googled me after
Mm-hmm.
being hired, after working there for a couple of weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and realized that I was on a most wanted list. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And I was on this list with people, I mean, with murderers,
Yeah.
with people who
And you would
did.
just run $5,000 to hot jacks.
Yeah,
That's all you had done.
and I think in total, everything that I took, it was under 10 grand.
Wow.
And interestingly enough, I mean, the reason ultimately that I ended up going to jail is because it was the banks who came after me.
Yeah.
It wasn't the individuals, and that's not to say that they should or shouldn't have, but a lot of those people were just like, "You're nuts. I just want nothing to do with
Yeah.
you." Or, it's like,
But no one person sued you. The banks went after you.
right.
Gotcha.
There were like a couple of
Small
small
claims
claims
something.
court stuff that I took care of, but like overall the big stuff was because these banks were like,
Yeah.
we're not getting this money from you,
Yeah.
we're not getting it from the other people, we're
Yeah.
coming after you.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should say this, but I don't feel bad about stealing money from banks. Like, I
Come
don't.
on.
I
Say
don't
it.
feel. I also stole money
They stole so
from.
much from me in my 20s with overdraft fees.
Yes, they
Wells Fargo,
did.
I'm still mad at you.
Yes, it's expensive to be poor.
Yep.
I'll look straight in the camera on record for this
Go
one.
ahead.
I stole money from a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of, but like the loan shark companies,
Like
like
the
cash
payday
checking,
lenders?
payday lenders. That
Oh.
I feel 0% bad about.
Say that. Say
People,
that.
individuals, not a good thing.
Yeah.
I am very remorseful. I think it's one of those things too where people are like, well, how remorseful can you be? You're writing a book about it. You're making a TV show about yourself, da 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 da. To me, that is the means to the end, though, because for whatever reason, people find this story fascinating.
Mhm.
And, what else am I doing besides, if I'm not utilizing that
Mhm.
in trying to do all the things I was talking about earlier, tell other people's stories,
Yeah.
like it's a means
Well,
to the end. And
well,
it's,
and also, it's
yeah,
allowed. Get your bag.
thank you.
Get your
Thank
bag.
you.
It's your story. You can tell it. Let me tell you something. I read a lot of books for work. I'd rather your books and that type of book get written than some of this other stuff.
Yeah.
Don't feel bad about it. I
Name
want
names.
to
I'm
talk
kidding.
more.
Put them on blast.
That's
Let's
the after show.
go.
I want to talk about specifically how your identity played into how the story was covered when it was like one of the biggest culture stories in the country. It's hard to overstate how a story like yours took over the internet in 2010. There was a week or two where Gawker was like on top of the world. Vice was
Yes,
on top of the
yes.
world. They were covering you extensively. The New York Observer profiled you. People were like looking for you around the city and sharing tips.
It went
Do you-
international.
Really?
Yeah, it was a
went
global
national.
story as
Yeah.
well.
Well, do you think that you would have gotten less attention? Do you think that you would have gotten less attention if you weren't Asian?
Yes. I think so for a number of reasons.
Okay.
Again, it was like subservient looking Asian woman does crazy
Mm.
thing. It was
Mhm.
the first time that I feel like the hipster culture was represented in mainstream media in a more negative way than just like, look at these pretentious people,
Yes.
right? It was
Yes.
like a crime.
Yeah.
So then again, there were a lot of people who were just like, yeah,
Uh-huh.
my friend is an amazing Black woman who the first time I met her, she was like, I just gotta tell you, she was like, the Black community, we stood behind you. She was like, we were all so enthralled. She was like, every day we were sending each other links being like, look what this bitch did today, let's go. And I
And
honestly have
that's what
never
I call
felt. Yes,
solidarity.
thank you. Yes, 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 yes. Truly though, and I don't know that I've ever been told anything that has made me like feel better.
Did you ever scam a Black person?
What was that?
Did you ever scam a Black person?
No. Are you kidding me? I never scammed any person of color,
Wow.
no women, and
Wow.
I am a queer person, so yeah, no, it was always I should say,
Honestly, that's kind of scam I can get behind.
right?
I'm not mad at that.
It's a cautionary tale. I'm neither. No comment. Allegedly, et cetera, all the other things that my lawyer has.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But yeah. So there was that part of it, right? The
Mhm.
identity. But then there was also like the reason that Utah, made such a big deal of this is
And put you
because
on that most wanted list.
the way that I looked, but then the media story, they would have looked so foolish if they wouldn't have got me. There are so
Oh.
many people that have quote unquote absconded from justice,
Yeah.
right? That they're like, you know what? They're in New York. That's their problem
Yeah.
now.
In their minds, they're like, we look like fools if we can't catch this tiny Asian woman.
Yeah, exactly, precisely. And so with that, again, I'm on this most wanted list. They literally came. I went to jail in Philadelphia first. I lived
Huh.
in New York. I was trying to like maybe in the media because it was such a big story. I was in
Mhm.
hiding. I was in a bed-stuy apartment,
Insane.
like a flop house, literally like
Insane.
running to the bodega with a hat and sunglasses on to get my like 25-cent
Oh my
bagel,
God.
running back. No one in that neighborhood gave a shit. They had no idea who I was, but
Yeah.
it still felt very because
Yeah.
people were so invested. Like
Mhm.
I remember seeing things where people were like, "Hey, let's get together and like go for a picnic at McCarran Park and let's just then wander around Brooklyn looking for this child."
People
That
were
was the
doing
other
scavenger
thing.
hunts for you.
Yeah, and
Wow.
I was an adult, but this was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
Our
You're still a
brains,
baby. You're still a
I very
baby.
much consider myself a
Yeah.
child at that time.
Yeah.
And so, again, not to be like, that means everything I did was fine, but I just wasn't thinking. I just wasn't
Mhm.
thinking at all. And so, yeah, the identity part definitely came into play. And there was a lot of misogynistic undertones, or very blatant tones to a
Mm.
lot of the writing because again, I mean, we talked about the notes that I would write, but I've always been a little thoughty and I'm not ashamed of it. If you follow me on Instagram, this is, I guess, your warning, the disclaimer, but I've always, surprisingly for how uncomfortable I was in my body for so long,
Mhm.
I'm very much in ways the opposite of that now.
Yeah.
And so I remember, happy to put them on blast, the Philadelphia Inquirer, which is a legitimate
What's the
newspaper.
paper?
At the time, they had a link at the bottom of one of their articles that was like, and because so many people ask whenever we write about her, here's a link to some of her like NSFW nudes.
Wait, they were sharing your nudes?
They were sharing my nudes, and not only that, they were leaked nudes. So I was mad because I was like, I don't even look good in these. These aren't even the ones that I want out there.
Yeah.
No, but they
Hearing
were
that-
legit like linking to nudes, and that I don't think, that wouldn't happen now. At least in that
And
way.
it might not have happened to a white woman then.
Right. So
That
there's a
thing.
lot that I'm sure hasn't even been really uncovered about
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So to answer your question, I do not think that the story would have been as much of a thing and definitely wouldn't have had as much staying power
Mhm.
because even though it was like, the 2-3 weeks in the beginning of all of it
Mhm.
that, really catapulted it to the next stratosphere, it still for months and months and months. I mean,
Yeah.
part of the way that I like got money put on my books, for commissary while I was incarcerated was because I was writing articles for Animal New York,
Wait,
and
hold on,
Gawker, and yeah, they were like
hold on.
posting my letters. Like
Wow.
I was responding to people's Twitter to their tweets
Uh-huh.
because they would like literally print them out and then send them to me. And so it's hilarious because it's like I would respond like literally like 7 weeks
Oh
later
my
because it took
god.
so long.
Can I ask you,
Yeah.
put your scam hat back on.
Okay.
You are teaching Scam 101
Okay.
as succinctly and clearly as possible. Tell me and our audience what makes for a good mark.
Oh, what
How do
makes
you
for a
know?
good mark? Okay, it's someone who believes that they have more than that they deserve more than what they have. And I don't mean
Ooh.
that in a people should aspire for better things.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
obviously, but I for men especially, white
Mm.
men, it's the
Mm.
entitlement, right? It's the
Okay.
like if I don't have this thing, why don't I? I've
Uh-huh.
worked hard. They're always working hard. They're always putting in the same amount that everyone else who's more successful than they do.
Mhm.
And a lot of it I remember was like it's the disrespect, I think, that kinda takes it to the next level.
Mm.
Again, there weren't people where I was like, "This is a target." Like, it wasn't like I like Terminator, like, scanning the room and then walking
Mhm.
in.
Mhm.
I was in ways, but it wasn't for, like, necessarily like, "You, I'm gonna take money
Yeah.
from you,"
Yeah.
until they opened their mouth and they said just some asinine stuff. Or it's like, yeah, bad shoes, that makes for a great mark.
Wait,
Bad
why?
shoes, because it means that they're not thinking about the bigger picture.
Woo!
I judge people on their
Wait,
shoes. Wait,
wait.
let's see
Shoe
yours.
check.
They're great. Those are
Okay.
great.
Okay.
They're great. Uh, I also just have a thing against bad footwear.
Same.
Um,
Same.
no, but it really, I think ultimately it's people who are searching for something that they could find within themselves, but choose to look elsewhere. So when I think
Damn.
of marks,
Uh-huh.
I think of it more so like, let's talk about religion. Let's talk about everything's a scam. Not the
Mm.
petty, one on
Yeah.
one. Mormonism,
Well,
I
you said in the
mean,
book, Mormonism taught you how to scam.
and that I stand by that.
How?
Well, I again have always been an observer, right?
Mhm.
And I was just watching these people, my parents included.
Mhm.
I love them. They
You converted when you
provided
were like 2,
when I
right?
was 2, yep,
Yeah.
yep. So that was a whole other thing because a lot of people who are Mormon, they have grown up in it and it's generations and generations
Mhm.
of.
Mhm.
Um, Also Mormon, I mean, a lot of religions, but Mormonism specifically is straight up colonization. I mean, they send people out to everywhere in the world to
Yeah.
sell this. It's
Yeah.
actual colonization, not
Yeah.
just me being like, I don't like them, so I'm
And
gonna
who's the main guy, the OG guy, John
Joseph Smith.
Joseph Smith?
Yep.
That boy was a
Con
scammer.
artist.
Con
Con
artiste.
artiste.
Con
Yeah, put the
artiste.
inflection on it because he was that good. His whole family. He came from a
Yes.
family, they were prolific con men.
Yeah.
And so, that part. But it was just, like watching my family who didn't have a lot of money.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, writing these checks for tithing, which is
Mhm.
10%.
Yep.
And it's 10% of everything, not ju
Yep.
and it's like 10% before taxes.
Yep.
You, in many
At least
cases,
an agent will get
literally
you a gig for
right?
10%.
Exactly, at least they're
Church,
working for
come
you.
on. The church is just like, give us the
Yeah,
money.
and Mormonism, like many other religions, but the LDS Church is very much like to get to grade A heaven, because there are 3 tiers,
And you get a planet in
you
one,
get a
right?
planet in one of them, that top one, but guess what?
Mhm.
You better be diligent about paying your tithing if you wanna
If
get
you
to
wanna
that
get to the
one.
planet.
Yeah, and as a
Damn.
woman, it's also, you have to be married in the temple to go
Oh,
to that level, and so
really?
for me, being a person who was not white,
Mhm.
and they had scriptures that literally said that
Oh, yeah.
people of color were
Oh, yeah.
dark and
Up until
loathsome.
1978,
Yep.
the Mormon church said that black people had a curse, and that's why their skin was so dark.
Yep. And so, like, me being not a white person, I was
Yeah.
like, "Okay, so you're basically telling me no one's ever gonna be interested in me because I'm cursed in some way, shape, or
Uh-huh.
form. But that also to get to heaven, I
I gotta
have to
give you
be
money
married.
forever.
I have to be married, which is not happening, so, like, why
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not gonna believe in this."
Exactly.
But so many people do. And
Yeah.
so,
Oh, yeah.
I saw that
Yeah.
firsthand,
Yeah.
and I was able to pick up on a lot of that, and I
Totally.
used a lot of the same tactics.
Really. What was the tactic in your scamming that most directly came from the lessons the Mormon church taught you?
Yeah, it was that people are, and I don't wanna say gullible. I really
Well,
hesitate
that's what
to
they are.
use
Yeah.
they are. I
Yeah.
hesitate to use that word because that, insinuates that there's some agency. I
Uh,
really the way that the church is designed is that you give people the semblance of an option, right?
woo.
And so
Uh.
a lot of
Is
what
that what you would do when you're scamming?
and that's what I would do. I would be like, "Okay, so the option for you is really to, like, agree to help me, right? Your friend who is in this bind, who
Uh-huh.
you care
And
about,
you have to help me because you're my friend, right? And you
and you
care,
have to
right?
help me." And
Mm.
I never even had to get to that point because these people were my friends and they did just wanna help. But
Yeah.
it was kind of putting them in a position where, yeah, I knew they weren't gonna say no. Just like I
And the only
watched
option would benefit you.
yeah, yeah.
Huh.
That being said, I mean, this was another kind of like wacky thing about the scams I was pulling is that all of the money,
Mhm.
for the most part, went to continuing to like treat my friends
You'd
to
hang out
like
with your friends.
dinners
You
and
scam them, get money, and then, like, take them to Benihana.
exactly.
It was
And
so it was I don't wanna say it was so sweet, but it was so sweet.
I mean, it was very much the like, oh my God, I have to be a person that people want to hang out with, or they're just not gonna, yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
I have to continue to like offer perks of being my friend.
Mhm.
They'll know that I will pick a foot the bill at
Mhm.
Benihana, da 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 da. And it's like, no, they probably would have just been, I
Yeah.
know that they would have
Yeah.
just been my friends, like
Totally.
they were.
Yeah. Was the first I forget from the book, was the first scam you did the check fraud, or was there one before? What
So
was your
the
first,
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 I guess,
first?
like scam, like a lot of people, it started with like petty retail
Okay.
theft,
Okay.
and there was a group of bad kids that I
Uh-huh.
would hang out with, and we would not go to seminary, which is like Mormon church,
Uh-huh.
and so we would go and we started playing these games around stealing things from Walmart. So it was like,
Uh,
who can steal the smallest thing? Who can steal the most expensive thing? Who can steal, and we would
mhm.
literally do this and then meet up like every week and
To
like
show
go
your haul.
through our
The
whole, yeah.
original haul
And the
video.
winner of it would get everyone's item. So
Oh,
it
it's a
was
fun little
fun,
game.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that was like the first, I
The
guess,
entree.
bad girl moment.
Mhm.
But my first me being menacing in the way of like fully taking advantage of someone, yeah, was one of my I think it's first first boyfriend of that time period and
And you liked him.
definitely
You wrote about him
oh
very fondly.
I I loved this person,
Yeah.
or at least I thought I loved this person. They did not deserve any of this, uh, but made it very and I don't wanna I'm not blaming them, but made it very easy because
Yeah.
they
He was a
I
good
think
mark.
truly yes. And maybe that's the real answer is that the best mark is someone who will ignore the red flags.
Uh.
There's an amazing BoJack Horseman quote where it's like, "When you're wearing rose-colored glasses, red flags just look like flags." This is
Woo!
coming from an animated talking horse show. If you haven't
This
watched
is
it,
why I haven't
y'all,
watched BoJack yet, because I'm not ready to be wrecked.
truly though,
I hear it'll wreck you.
it will wreck you, and it's brilliant, and that has stuck with me because I'm like,
Mhm.
I think for both of us, it was
Mhm.
like I was like, "Wow, there's a man who's interested in me.
Yeah.
He doesn't care that I am Asian. If anything, that's like a perk, and
Mhm.
he was this
Mhm.
band guy who, we thought that we were happy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think the guise of just like comfort is
Mhm.
probably the real answer
Yeah.
of what makes a good mark.
Okay.
But
Yeah. I wanna play a game with you, all
okay.
about scams, but before that, I want you to give me a scam name.
Oh,
Part of what I
for
love
you.
about your story, oh, yeah, is that, like, Hipster Grifter, for better or for worse, is a name that sticks. It's like it doesn't quite rhyme, but it, like, rolls off the tongue really well.
Yep.
Hipster Grifter. It also taps into a word that means so many things to so many different people. The word hipster, like, it's an
Hmm.
idea, right?
Oh,
It's a
and
great name for a scammer.
I
Yeah.
always joke too. I'm like out of hipster grifter. The one that I have more of a problem with, like a true hipster, is being called a hipster.
Yes, exactly,
I'm like the
exactly.
grifter part. I mean, that obviously sucks, but like a hipster, come
Hipster, come on.
on.
But
Okay, let's
if I were to
see.
be a scammer, what would my scammer name be? And I guess you need some details about how I might scam
Yeah,
to make this assessment.
exactly.
I would scam. Okay, what demo do I want to scam? I would only scam Mean gays.
Oh.
Nice gays, love y'all.
Okay, but
We're in solidarity.
yes.
Mean gays, I'd scam
Okay.
them. So, like, all of the, like, gays that are too pretty to talk to anybody,
Mhm,
the
mhm.
ones who are just kind of D-baggy, I would make it a point to defraud them.
Yeah.
If that was my shtick as a scammer,
Okay.
what would my scam name be?
See, I think whatever the scam was, it has to have something to do with like Sandman, right? Like the
Ah.
Sandman, I don't know, the Sandman sleeper. Is it that you do get them at home, right?
Yeah.
Or you follow them home. I don't know what's going on here,
Okay.
but I feel like if they're catty bitches, that
Uh-huh.
means that they likely are not paying as much attention as they should
Oh, yeah, for
be.
sure. For sure.
So you're like sneaking around kind of under the radar, right? Because
Uh-huh.
they're too holier than thou.
Uh-huh.
So it's almost as if they're asleep when it comes to. So I don't know. I
Mm.
don't know if
The Grim Reaper.
there's something better. The Grim Reaper.
The Grim Reaper.
There's got to be something better, and there's
Something
got
with
to be
sleep.
something like, oh, I can't say that word.
Say it.
There's got to. Well, I was gonna say there's got to be something cuntier for you. Like
Ah.
there's got to be like you got to bring in the queerness
Yes. I would
of
call
it
myself the
all.
dog catcher.
Oh, I like that.
Mean dog.
The
I'm
dog
gonna get 'em.
catcher.
Dog catcher.
I like that.
I want. Okay. Now I'm plotting out how
Your
to
next
write my
scam.
scam. So
That's
like
what it sounds
I'm gonna
like.
do it. Douchiest gay bar in WeHo.
Okay.
The mean tall gays that weren't talking to anybody. I accidentally spilled my drink, and then we started talking, and before you know it, I got some wallets.
Yes.
This is it. This is it.
I
I'm never gonna
mean,
do this, but if I did do it, it'd be great.
I believe in you. I believe that you should also not do that, but I believe in
Yes,
you. I think that
yes.
you would be great at it. Real recognize real, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But I think in that vein, I make the joke of like, well, this is the long con, right? Me speaking to like having these conversations. So realistically, if you look at it through that light, that marketing, all of that, I mean, everyone's a scammer.
Everyone's
You're
a
scamming,
scammer.
baby, but you're doing it for the right reasons.
Scamming for good.
Scamming for good.
I'm
Exactly.
gonna close with a game. Then we have a little gift for you.
Oh.
But first, we made a game for you called Scam
Okay.
or No Scam.
Scam or no scam?
I'll list a thing. You tell me if it's a scam or not.
Okay.
America's healthcare system.
Ha! Scam.
Reality TV.
Not a scam.
Why?
I think that reality TV, sure, maybe the construction of it is not the
Mhm.
most realistic,
Uh-huh.
but I just it's like an anthropological study.
Okay. I'll
You're
take
watching people, you're seeing how they interact with one
Yeah.
another.
The
Sure, maybe
emotions
it's
are real.
heightened,
The
but
emotions are real.
the core of it
Yeah.
is real.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mormon reality TV stars. Scam or no scam?
Ooh, I have to say both.
Okay.
Like, because I think that the show itself, again, like with any reality TV, you kind of know what you're getting, so not a scam, but then
Mhm.
the fact that it's Mormon
Yeah.
related, then
Okay.
scam.
Wellness.
That's a tough one. That's too broad.
I think it's a scam.
I'm
Drink
gonna
water,
say
eat
overall
vegetables,
scam.
exercise.
Yeah, I'll say overall scam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna get old, whatever you do. Gawker.
Not a scam because they were actually very open
Yeah.
about
What they were.
their practices.
What they want to
So
do.
honestly, very authentic.
Okay. Okay. General meetings, Hollywood meetings. I hear you've been on a lot recently.
I've been on a lot of them recently, and I'm lucky because I haven't had a really bad experience. I think like not a scam, and that's not just
Okay.
that's not.
But they're annoying.
They're annoying.
They're so
but
annoying.
But you know what? It's
Yeah.
like for me, the Manhattan meal plan, where I'm like, yeah, I'll meet with you.
'Cause you're
We're
buying me
meeting at
lunch.
lunch, right? We're doing lunch, right? We're doing dinner, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Let's have our general.
yeah. So yes,
Yeah.
scam because of me.
Okay. I like that. I like that. They're happening this weekend. The Oscars. Scam or no scam?
Scam.
Total scam.
Total scam.
Any system, any award governing body that gives an award to Crash over Brokeback Mountain,
Yes.
no.
Yes.
You're a scam.
Crash.
All right.
Oh God.
Hot to a girl.
Scam, but I don't necessarily think she is a scam.
I felt like she got caught up.
She got caught
She
up.
got caught up.
She got caught up.
Yeah.
I have an interesting theory about her. We don't have to get into it, but I have an
after the show.
interesting theory.
Last question for you. Which holiday is the biggest scam?
Oh my God. Well, Christmas, obviously, but I love Christmas.
Yeah.
The biggest scam, I mean, Valentine's Day, because
That's
it
what
straight
I
up was
say.
created to sell
to sell
things.
cards
I
and
mean,
gifts.
everything was.
Yeah.
But at least even if you do or don't believe in the religious aspects of Christmas, it is like there's at least an origin story. Like,
There
what
is.
is the origin story of Valentine's Day? Like, the even pretend origin
St.
story.
Valentine's
It's
stuff,
like,
yeah.
oh, you love someone on this one
Yeah.
day. Like, probably
Come
not
on, yeah.
a great way to start a
I
holiday.
think Christmas is a scam, but like a scam on Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, all right, it's your birthday, bro, and we just give gifts to everybody else?
Wait, I love
I don't get
yes.
it. Jesus is getting played.
Yeah.
Give him something.
Yeah, and overall, like we are gathering together as friends and community and family. So we really are
Right?
benefiting.
Yes.
He's being
yes.
left in the.
He's being left out.
I mean,
He's being left out. It ain't right. Speaking of being left out, we don't want you to feel left out today because you made a special stop here because you didn't have to be here today. It's your birthday.
oh, it is my birthday.
So happy birthday.
Thank you.
And in honor of your birthday, my colleague Bennett got us some cupcakes.
Oh my God, that's so
Can we give you a
sweet.
cupcake?
Thank you also to your entire team.
Oh my God,
a
of
lot
course.
of people. A lot of people
Yes.
make this happen.
Get in the shot, Bennett. Get in the
Bennett, get in the shot.
Happy birthday.
Oh my God.
And a card. Oh my God.
Get in the shot.
I love that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for teaching me how to scam. As you nibble on your cupcake, which you can do right now, whatever
I'm
you want.
definitely going to.
I do want you to leave our listeners with the biggest lesson you learned through your really redemptive story arc, from scammer to reform to talking about truth and living in truth. Like, what's the biggest lesson you learned on this scam to no scam journey?
I mean, it seems so simple to say like that people really do deserve second chances. Obviously, you know, I'm not saying just believe anything and everything you're told, but people want to be better people. We see that all the time, regardless of if they've been incarcerated, like, I truly believe that the majority of folks want to improve. And I think, but the biggest thing is that we all as individuals have, I don't want to even say a responsibility because it can look so many different ways, but we are the ones who have to band together. The billionaires, these people, like, they're the minority. The billionaires, there are far fewer of them than there are of us.
And they're running larger scale scams on us.
They're
Don't
the
be worried
largest.
about the hipster grifter doing $5,000 of hot checks. Who's really stealing from you? Okay.
Yeah. So it's really just like solidarity. I mean, I'm
All
big
right.
into like mutual aid and just find your people. I mean, all of your listeners, find your communities, and we keep each other safe. We cannot depend on anyone else. It has to be us. We are the movement. We are the way forward.
I love this.
And I really think that, again, that can look so many different ways. That can be donations. That can be you on the ground, you know, with these mutual aid organizations. It can just be you talking to people
Yeah.
about it. I don't like the idea of like you have to be doing all of the things. It doesn't even have to be all of the causes. It's what
I
do
love
you
this.
care about?
What do you care about?
And, you know, just help you and all the people you love and care about become more fulfilled people. So
Look at that.
that's my thing.
The answer is second chances and community. You heard it here first.
You heard it here first.
I love this.
Thank you for this. Thank you so
Oh my God,
much.
Kari, thank you. Take a
Thank you.
bite
I am
while
going
I
to
talk a little bit. I want to thank you so much for coming on this show. And I want to tell folks again how to find you and your book. Kari's book is called You'll Never Believe Me, A Life of Lies, Second Tries, and Things I Should Only Tell My Therapist. They can also find you on Instagram at...
Hot dog hand jobs.
Hell yeah. Okay, with that, we ask each of our guests before they leave to sign our beach ball. Spread eagle. Do what you got to do. I like that positioning.
Right? People would also pay money for this.
Hot dog hand jobs. It just rolls off the tongue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank y'all for checking out the show this week. Go scam someone who deserves to be scammed. See you next Friday. Bye.